I'm here today to begin a series of podcasts on books that I've authored, and I'd like to begin with a bit of an introduction of myself. Hi, my name is Doug Collins. I'm a career participant in cybersecurity, having spent 35 years either auditing it or consulting in it, which I'm presently doing. Now, here's the thing. I've determined that cybersecurity has a big problem that is so broad that I've had to write books describing it. These books are written in the structure of a huge audit finding dedicated in particular to company CEOs who must live with the high costs of the outcomes of this audit finding daily. I was not commissioned for this by anyone, I just delivered it. For your information, audit findings are presented in phases. Phase 1, the issues, which are real. Phase 2, the impacts, which are hypothesized. And Phase 3, the recommendations, which are obviously to be developed. I've written books covering each of these phases of the maiden cybersecurity finding. Here is the structure of my books as a roadmap for future reference. Firstly, my book, The New Architecture, describes the issues. Second, the fictional, although realistic impacts are addressed in my series of books, Quantum Worlds. Finally, the recommendations unfold in my upcoming book, Cybersecurity's Best Defense, due out June 2026, addressing past vulnerability causes, present AI dangers, as far-reaching as quantum computing exposure. This chapter of podcasts addresses the lead book of my series, Quantum Worlds, noted as my audit findings' most catastrophic impact. So without further ado, now to my book, Decryption Gambit. Sorry, I forgot, just one more thing of note. Firstly, all of my books are available at my website, dougcollinsauthor.com, or at your favorite global online book outlet. Now back to the subject at hand, Decryption Gambit. When markets collapse, the financial fallout of a quantum breach. Imagine waking up to find that every digital transaction, every bank account, every stock trade, every cryptocurrency wallet, every credit card payment is suddenly vulnerable. Not in a theoretical future, now. Today, markets frozen, ATMs rejecting cards, algorithms failing mid-execution. That's not a thought experiment in Decryption Gambit. It's Tuesday, and it's devastating. Michael O'Connor is introduced to us against the backdrop of Lower Manhattan, sitting rigid in his glass-walled office, watching the skyline that has always represented his power begin to feel like a backdrop to unraveling catastrophe. He is, Collins tells us, a man who built his engine on intangible architectures of data, trust, and algorithmic precision. And in the Silentium crisis, all three of those foundations are simultaneously collapsing. The financial chapters of this book are some of its most visceral, and they work because Collins understands how modern finance actually operates. It is not a system of physical objects. It is a system of encrypted trust. Every transaction, every time a number changes in a database somewhere to reflect a payment, depends on the cryptographic validation that the change is legitimate, authorized, and irreversible. When Silentium undermines that cryptographic foundation, it doesn't just expose information, it destabilizes the entire concept of financial reality. Collins describes what happens to O'Connor's trading systems with precise, almost clinical horror. The entire blocks of transactions, contracts, and derivative trades were being undone mid-exchange, market data warping beyond ininterpretability, and critical financial institutions scrambled to regain footing of foundations suddenly revealed as sand. The New York Stock Exchange shuts down, an unprecedented suspension that, as Collins notes, echoed historic crisis yet defied comparison. Tokyo's Nikkei, London's FTSE, Hong Kong's Hang Seng, all halted, not because of a conventional cyber attack, not because of fraud or manipulation in any recognizable form, but because the cryptographic trust that made digital markets function is gone. What follows is a cascade, and Collins is excellent at conveying how cascades work. Investors panic. Capital flees to perceived safe havens. Precious metals, sovereign bonds, further destabilizing already fragile valuations. Price movements become untethered from fundamentals, triggering volatility that threaten to cascade into full economic collapse. High-frequency trading algorithms designed to function in nanoseconds on assumptions of cryptographic reliability begin producing results that are worse than random. The machines built to optimize the markets are now accelerating its destruction. O'Connor makes a series of increasingly desperate interventions, halting high-frequency trading, isolating servers, reverting to physical custody controls. None of it works. The breach isn't in its system specifically, it's in the mathematical assumptions beneath every system. There is no firewall to raise against a physics-level vulnerability. Collins uses O'Connor's professional collapse to explore something important about the nature of modern finance, how much of it rests on invisible, assumed foundations that nobody thinks about until they break. Digital money is fundamentally a set of cryptographically protected agreements. When the cryptography fails, the agreements become contestable. And when agreements become contestable, value evaporates. Because value in a modern economy is ultimately a social agreement about what things are worth, enforced by systems that are now compromised. There's a moment in O'Connor's chapters where Collins zooms out from the trading floors and boardrooms to the street level. People at ATMs getting transactions rejected messages, credit cards failing at grocery stores, digital payment systems stalling mid-process, inflationary pressure and panic buying beginning as early as tremors of systemic breakdown. This is where the book makes one of its most important points. Financial crises are not abstract events that happen to markets. They are physical events that happen to people. When the systems fail, it's Raj Patel who can't buy groceries, not Michael O'Connor. O'Connor loses billions, which is catastrophic for him personally and for the financial system broadly. But he still has options. He still has networks. He still has the ability to engage powerful people and navigate institutions. Raj Patel has none of those buffers. Collins tracks Raj through the crisis. A humble family man in Toronto, trying to keep his household together as infrastructure fails around him, power grids flickering, communication systems unreliable, basic services disrupted. He's not in anyone's boardroom or NATO briefing room. He's just trying to get through the day. Collins uses this contrast between the ultra-wealthy O'Connor and the ordinary Raj Patel to make a structural argument. Financial crisis created by technological failures at the highest levels of global infrastructure always extract the greatest cost from the people with the least ability to absorb it. The people whose decisions create the crisis or fail to prevent it have resources, relationships, and institutional access that cushion the blow. The people who never knew the risk existed are the ones left standing in the dark. O'Connor, to his credit, eventually reaches this understanding himself. In the wreckage of his empire, after nights of watching markets fragment and confidence evaporate, he comes to a quiet resolution. He would fight not merely to preserve his fortune, but to defend the fragile architecture of trust upon which the global system depended. He starts drafting a message to international counterparts, calling for unprecedented cooperation. It's a small gesture in the face of catastrophic loss, but Collins presents it without irony, because in the world of this novel, the alternative Every major financial player trying to survive by hoarding information and protecting their own position is exactly what Silentium's deployment is counting on. The crisis is a test of whether the people with power can choose cooperation over competition when the stakes are essential, and Collins doesn't let us be sure they'll pass it. The financial collapse sequence in Decryption Gambit is one of the most gripping and genuinely illuminating things I've read in years. Doug Collins makes you feel the systematic fragility of global finance in a way that no economics textbook has ever imagined. Managed. The book is on Amazon now, ebook, audiobook, and print, and you'll find the link in our show notes. Read it. It will change how you think about money.